caught my wife cheating, so I ended her affair partner's marriage. I never thought it would happen to me. I had been married to my beautiful wife, Sarah, for 5 years, and we had a wonderful life together. We had a beautiful home, great jobs, and we were planning on starting a family soon. But all of that changed when I caught her cheating on me. I came home early from work one day to surprise Sarah with dinner, but what I saw was a surprise that I could never have expected. As I walked into our bedroom, I saw Sarah in bed with another man. I was shocked and furious. I couldn't believe that she would do something like this to me. I confronted her, and at first, she denied everything. But when I showed her the evidence that I had gathered, she broke down and confessed. She told me that she had been seeing this man, named Michael, for several months. She said that she was sorry and that she still loved me, but I couldn't forgive her. I was devastated. I loved Sarah with all my heart, and I thought that our marriage was strong. But now, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just let this go, and I didn't want to give up on our marriage. So, I came up with a plan. I decided to confront Michael and end his marriage. I wanted to make him feel the pain that I was feeling. I started to gather information about him, and I found out that he was married with 2 children. He had a wife named Lisa, who was a stay-at-home mom, and they had been married for 10 years. I knew that Lisa was innocent in all of this, but I couldn't let Michael get away with what he had done. I started to follow him, and I found out that he had a routine. He would leave work at 5 p.m. and head straight to a local bar. He would stay there until about 7 p.m., and then he would go home. One evening, I decided to confront him at the bar. I walked up to him and introduced myself. I could see the fear in his eyes when he realized who I was. I told him that I knew about his affair with my wife and that I was going to end his marriage. Michael begged me not to do anything, but I wasn't listening. I had already made up my mind. I followed him home that night, and I waited outside his house. I could hear Lisa and the kids inside. I knew that I was about to destroy their lives, but I didn't care. Finally, Michael came home, and I walked up to him. I told him that I was going to tell Lisa everything, and he started to plead with me. But it was too late. I knocked on the door and told Lisa the truth about her husband's affair. She was devastated. She started to cry, and the kids came running over to her. I could see the pain in her eyes, and I felt a pang of guilt. But I knew that what I had done was the right thing. I left their house feeling satisfied, but also empty. I had destroyed a family, and I didn't know how to feel about it. I went home and tried to talk to Sarah, but she didn't want to hear it. She told me that she couldn't be with someone who would do something like that. We got a divorce, and I haven't seen Sarah since. But I still think about her every day. I wonder if I made the right decision. I wonder if I could have saved our marriage if I had just let it go. But then I remember the pain that I felt when I caught her cheating, and I know that I did the right thing. As for Michael and Lisa, they got a divorce soon after I confronted them. I heard from a mutual friend that Lisa couldn't forgive Michael for his infidelity, and they decided to end their marriage. It wasn't the outcome that I wanted, but I knew that it was the consequence of Michael's actions. I tried to make amends with Lisa and offer her support, but she didn't want anything to do with me. I understood her anger and frustration towards me. I was the reason her marriage had fallen apart, and I couldn't take it back. After that experience, I realized that revenge doesn't bring closure or satisfaction. It only creates more pain and chaos. I learned that the best way to deal with betrayal is to confront it and then let it go. It's not easy, but it's the only way to move forward. I started to focus on myself and my healing process. I went to therapy, traveled, and spent time with my family and friends. I even started to date again and met someone who I connected with deeply. She understood my past and supported me through my healing process. Looking back at that difficult time in my life, I realized that it taught me a valuable lesson. Betrayal hurts, but it's not the end of the world. You can survive it, and you can move on. It takes time and patience, but you can find happiness and love again. In conclusion, catching my wife cheating on me was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But it also taught me a valuable lesson about forgiveness, revenge, and healing. I don't regret confronting Michael and ending his marriage, but I do regret the pain that it caused Lisa and her family. I hope that they were able to find peace and move forward in their own way. As for me, I have moved on and found happiness again. I will always remember the lessons that I learned from that experience, and I will never forget the pain of betrayal. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Story 2. I called his wife after he cheated with my wife. I never thought I would be the type of person to get involved in someone else's marriage, but when my wife admitted to cheating with a mutual friend of ours, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit idly by and watch as 2 families were torn apart by this affair. It all started when my wife started acting distant and detached. At first, I thought it was just work stress, but then I noticed that she was constantly on her phone and would quickly put it away whenever I entered the room. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on, so I started snooping around. That's when I found the messages between my wife and our friend, John. They were filled with explicit language and plans to meet up behind my back. I was absolutely devastated. John and I had been friends for years, and I never would have suspected that he would do something like this. I confronted my wife, and she tearfully admitted to the affair. She promised that it was a mistake and that she would do anything to make it right, but I just couldn't forgive her. I knew that I had to take action, not just for my own sake, but for John's wife and family as well. I called John's wife, Sarah, and told her everything. I could hear the shock and pain in her voice as I recounted the sordid details of the affair. She thanked me for telling her and said that she had noticed something was off with her husband lately, but never suspected that he was cheating. Over the next few days, Sarah and I talked on the phone a lot. We commiserated about our cheating spouses and tried to make sense of everything that had happened. It was strange, but talking to her made me feel better. It was like we were in this together, united by our mutual pain. Meanwhile, my wife and I started the process of separating. It was messy and emotional, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I just couldn't see myself ever forgiving her for what she had done. As for John and Sarah, their marriage fell apart pretty quickly. I don't know all the details, but I heard through the grapevine that Sarah filed for divorce and John moved out of the house they shared with their 2 young children. Looking back, I can't say that I regret calling Sarah. It was a difficult decision to make, but I knew that I had to do it. Cheating isn't just about the 2 people involved. It affects everyone around them, especially the innocent spouses and children. In a strange way, calling Sarah was cathartic. It allowed me to take control of the situation and do something to make things right. I may have lost my marriage in the process, but I gained a new friend in Sarah, and that's something I wouldn't trade for anything. Of course, not everyone saw it that way. John was furious with me for telling his wife, and he made sure to let me know it. He accused me of ruining his life and his family, and he even threatened to sue me for defamation. I was taken aback by his reaction. After all, he was the one who cheated, not me. But I guess he needed someone to blame, and I was an easy target. In the end, though, I stood by my decision. I knew that what I did was right, and I wouldn't let John's anger or anyone else's opinion change that. It's been a few months now since everything happened, and I can honestly say that I'm in a better place. I still miss my wife and the life we had together, but I know that I deserve better than someone who would cheat on me. As for Sarah, we still talk on a regular basis. We've even met up a few times for coffee or drinks, and it's been nice to have someone who understands what I went through. We talk about our lives, our kids, and even our exes, and it's all very natural and easy. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I'm grateful to have her in my life. She's been a great friend and support system, and I know that I can always count on her. As for John, I haven't heard from him since our confrontation. I don't know if he's still angry or if he's moved on, but I honestly don't care. I did what I had to do, and I stand by my decision. In the end, calling John's wife after he cheated with my wife was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the most rewarding. It allowed me to take control of the situation and make things right, and it also led me to a new friend in Sarah. Cheating is a terrible thing, and it affects everyone involved. But sometimes, it takes someone to stand up and do the right thing, even if it's difficult or unpopular. I'm proud of myself for having the courage to make that call, and I hope that my story can inspire others to do the same. How do you feel about this? Tell me in the comments section. Story 3. He lost everything when he cheated with my wife because I called his. John was a man who had everything going for him. He had a successful career, a beautiful wife, and a loving family. But everything changed the day he cheated with my wife. I found out about the affair when I came home early from a business trip and caught them in the act. It was a devastating blow, and I felt like my entire world had come crashing down. At first, I didn't know what to do. I was angry, hurt, and confused. But then I realized that I couldn't let John get away with what he had done. He had not only betrayed my wife, but also me as a friend. So I decided to call him out on it. I called him and told him that I knew about the affair and that he needed to end it immediately. I also made it clear that if he didn't, I would expose him to his family, friends, and colleagues. At first, John tried to deny everything. He said that it was a mistake and that it would never happen again. But I wasn't buying it. I knew that he had been cheating on his own wife for years, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it this time. So I started to gather evidence. I hired a private investigator to follow my wife and John around and take pictures of them together. I also talked to mutual friends and colleagues to see if anyone else knew about the affair. It wasn't long before I had enough evidence to confront John again. This time, I told him that I had proof of the affair and that I would be sharing it with his wife and his employer if he didn't come clean. John was desperate at this point. He begged me not to tell anyone and promised that he would end the affair. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. I followed through on my threat and told John's wife and his employer about the affair. His wife was devastated, and his employer was furious. John was fired from his job and left with nothing. It was a small victory for me, but it came at a great cost. My marriage was over, and I was left with nothing but bitterness and anger. But as time went on, I began to realize that I had done the right thing. John had been a terrible friend, and he had betrayed not only me but also his own family. He deserved to be exposed for the fraud that he was. And so, I moved on with my life. I started over in a new city, found a new job, and eventually met someone new. I fell in love again, and this time, I knew that it was real. But even though I had moved on, I still thought about John from time to time. I wondered what had become of him and whether he had learned his lesson. One day, out of the blue, I received a phone call from John. He sounded different, almost like a different person. He apologized for what he had done and said that he had hit rock bottom after losing everything. He told me that he had gone through rehab and was now sober. He had also started therapy and was working on becoming a better person. He said that he wanted to make amends and asked if we could meet up and talk. I was hesitant at first, but eventually I agreed to meet him. When we met, I was surprised by how different he looked. He had lost weight, his hair was shorter, and he had a new sense of purpose. We talked for hours, and John told me about his journey of self-discovery. He apologized again for what he had done and said that he was working on making things right. I didn't know what to make of it all. Part of me wanted to forgive him, but another part of me couldn't forget the pain and betrayal that he had caused me and my family. In the end, I decided to give him a chance. I could see that he was genuinely sorry and that he was trying to change. We started meeting up regularly, and over time, we became friends again. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when I felt angry and resentful towards him. But as time went on, those feelings started to fade, and I began to see John in a different light. He had lost everything when he cheated with my wife, but he had also gained something. He had gained a new perspective on life and had learned the value of honesty, integrity, and forgiveness. I realized that sometimes the people who hurt us the most can also teach us the most valuable lessons. John had taught me that forgiveness is possible, even in the most challenging of circumstances. And so I forgave him, not just for myself, but for him too. He had paid the price for his mistakes, and he deserved a second chance. Today, John is still my friend, and I'm grateful for his presence in my life. He may have lost everything when he cheated with my wife, but he also gained something far more important, the chance to become a better person. How does this story make you feel? Let me know by leaving a comment below. Story 4. He cheated on me with a married woman, so I called her husband. I couldn't believe it when I found out that my boyfriend, Jack, was cheating on me, and not just with any woman, but a married woman. I was devastated and angry, but I didn't want to just let it go. I wanted to confront both of them and make them pay for what they did. So I did something that may seem extreme to some, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time. I called her husband. I didn't know what to expect when I dialed the number. Would he even answer? Would he believe me? Would he be angry with me for calling him out of the blue? But I had to try. I needed to talk to someone who knew what was going on and who could help me deal with the situation. When he picked up the phone, I introduced myself and explained the situation. At first, he was skeptical. He didn't want to believe that his wife could be cheating on him. But as I told him the details, he began to realize that something was definitely wrong. He thanked me for calling him and promised to look into it. I hung up the phone feeling a little bit better, but still angry and hurt. I couldn't believe that Jack would do this to me, and I couldn't believe that he would cheat with someone who was already married. Days passed and I heard nothing from the husband. I began to think that maybe I had made a mistake by calling him. Maybe I had overreacted and made things worse. But then, one day, I received a phone call from him. He told me that he had confronted his wife about the affair and that she had admitted to everything. He was devastated, of course, but he was also grateful to me for bringing it to his attention. He thanked me again and told me that he had ended the marriage. I was both relieved and sad to hear the news. Relieved because the cheating had been exposed, but sad because I knew that a family had been torn apart. I also wondered what would happen to Jack. Would he be with his married lover now that she was single? Would he try to come back to me? I didn't have to wait long to find out. A few days later, Jack showed up at my door, begging for forgiveness. He told me that he had made a mistake and that he still loved me, but I couldn't forgive him that easily. He had betrayed me and hurt me in a way that would take time to heal. I told him that I needed space and time to think. I needed to figure out what I wanted and what was best for me. He left, looking defeated and sad. I felt guilty for hurting him, but I also knew that I couldn't just forgive him and forget everything that had happened. Days turned into weeks, and I slowly began to move on. I started dating again and meeting new people. I realized that there were other guys out there who were better for me and who wouldn't cheat on me with a married woman. Jack tried to contact me a few more times, but I didn't respond. I had made my decision and I knew that it was the right one. I didn't want to be with someone who didn't respect me and who could hurt me so easily. Months later, I received another call from the husband. He wanted to thank me again for what I had done and to let me know that he had moved on and was doing okay. He also told me that he had heard from his ex-wife that Jack had left her as well. I was shocked but not surprised. I knew that Jack was the type of guy who would never be satisfied with just one woman. He was always looking for something new and exciting, even if it meant hurting others in the process. In a way, I felt sorry for Jack. He had lost both me and his married lover, and he was now alone. But at the same time, I knew that he had brought it upon himself. He had made his choices, and he had to live with the consequences. Years have passed since that phone call with the husband. I'm now happily married to a wonderful man who treats me with respect and love. I'm grateful for everything that happened because it led me to where I am now. I learned that I deserve better and that I shouldn't settle for anything less. Sometimes I still think about Jack and his married lover. I wonder if they ever got back together or if they both moved on. But then I remind myself that it doesn't matter. That part of my life is over, and I'm glad that I had the courage to stand up for myself and confront them. In the end, calling her husband was the right decision for me. It allowed me to take control of the situation and to bring the cheating to light. It was a difficult and painful experience, but it also taught me valuable lessons about love and relationships. I learned that trust and respect are essential, and that it's better to be alone than to be with someone who doesn't value you. If you're going through something similar, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel angry, hurt, and betrayed. But it's also important to remember that you deserve better. Don't let anyone treat you poorly or disrespect you. Stand up for yourself and take control of your life. You'll be stronger for it in the end. When you subscribe, make sure you also click the notification bell. Click this next video for more Tangled threads.